Hello and welcome to the Skeleton Key with Niko. It's the Madonna-Whore Complex. Let's put Madonna in the hubris slot. The Madonna represents the aspect of that woman that is maternal. And the whore, by virtue of being not the Madonna, is sort of the counterpart. The end product of the projection is not to perceive it more strongly, but to begin to release it and see the person as they are and own that the projection is something that exists within the self. We've begun with the Madonna. It's in the hubris position, which means that if we're to stay here and never enter the whore part, don't mean it in that way, it sort of descends into just a normal, just a decent woman. Like, this is the sort of long-term wife that a lot of boomer jokes are about. Or, of course, to be better than nothing, it's a person that either you find boring and almost sterile, or it's a person that you're so terrified of that it doesn't matter whether or not you find them attractive. Or it's bad that you find them attractive because it creates problems. The only thing that could ever justify this is that, maybe it's better than nothing. I wouldn't say it is, but that's what would justify it. And so in these 4 different iterations of a man's anima, what really I found achieves the most is imagining what would all of these look like if they were actually applied to men. Because, as I mentioned, all of these archetypes are taking place within the mind of a man. They have no sovereignty over the actual function of a woman, and if anything, point exclusively to the way that a man functions, insofar as projections are just unowned parts of the self. So I've had another skeleton key, and this is where the fuckboy and the simp come in. Bless. In the hubris slot, the equivalent of the Madonna, taking on again the sort of divine quality of the Madonna, is sort of like the father, with a capital F. Like, this is authority and respectability, but also duty and responsibility. But if that's held too long, the father, our father that's in heaven, it sort of degenerates into just like, a good father, like a nice dad, just a nice guy, a nice guy. And that's got a lot of connotation. And the point is that far from the responsibility and the respectability and the authority of the father, the nice guy or the simp is taking on excess responsibility and sort of arrogating that respect and authority. He gives away his energy. He's overly supportive, lacks boundaries, and in many ways provides like the father does, but without any of the caveats and the discipline and the structures that is a part of the gift the father can bring. The player, okay? The player / the boy. So we got the sort of the two opposites of the provider and the father, or the player and the boy. To stay in this state of irresponsibility for too long without oscillating back and forth with the father, to be the dream man, so to speak, becomes the fuckboy, or you could even say the sociopath. This person denies all responsibility and makes other people take on the work that they should be responsible for. The level of play has entered a stage of recklessness. It's the freak case. It's the equivalent. Sometimes he's a sociopath, sometimes he's a nice guy. He's better than nothing. The only way out of it is to return back to that positive generative cycle. And the reason why I put the Madonna-Whore Complex first is to show that what I think is really happening here is that as the man goes through these 4 different expressions, what's really happening is that his relationship with his anima is also changing. And that's what's so important about the Madonna-Whore projection, is that if that can be acknowledged as a projection and sort of brought home, so to speak, that's when it can reveal what's happening on the home front. Put practically, it's like if someone's attracted to the whore archetype, the anima as the contrasexual, as the complement to the ego, is suggesting something that the ego needs to integrate in order to achieve a new sense of balance, which would suggest that for someone that's the father, the anima projection of someone in that slot, or likewise with the nice guy and the simp, would be the opposite in the anima realm. So the provider is looking for the whore to create that balance, to enter the dream man, that sort of generative breathing. And the simp is looking for the freak case, or the fuckboy is looking for just a decent woman, or likewise the Madonna, if she would have anything to do with him. But the point is that sort of chasing and magnetism, all of attraction really is just an acknowledging that something in them is a part of you. And attraction is the process of getting closer and closer to that until eventually they become one. There's a connection and then a unification, because what's projected out there actually belongs within. I think this is important because we've had a lot of talk, a lot of really loaded talk about the Madonna and the whore, but never really have we looked closely at why these archetypes exist and where they come from and what they say about the people that project them, what they say about men. There's nothing to do with women. Women have animus projections, but these are anima projections. And as we've seen with the hubris and the nevma, all of generative self-development comes from this breathing action, this connection, this union with the hubris and the nevma, between ego and the anima in this case. Look, if there's anything that you want me to go over, or that you think, like, Niko, you're full of shit, question it. But yeah, thank you for listening. I think that would be the right verb. And I hope this has been vaguely informative. My pleasure, as always. Ciao.